I love chocolate brownies. I love them even more when they're dotted with raspberries. So here's my foolproof recipe. The distinct difference between a brownie and a chocolate cake, for example, is the amount of flour in here. There's very minimal flour. What makes it extra special and really rich and fudgy is there's a lot of chocolate butter and cream cheese. So in a bowl that's over a pot, I'm just going to melt the chocolate. You'll need 150 grams of dark chocolate for this recipe. I prefer to use dark chocolate for this so we really get that intense chocolatey flavour. So we'll just break up the chocolate. When you're melting chocolate, just ensure that the water underneath is not boiling. You just want it to be at a gentle simmer. If it's boiling, you could seize up the chocolate. The slower you do this, the better it is. So break that up into little squares. To this, I'm going to add 75 grams of unsalted butter. So we'll just cut that off. Perfect. And then what I like to do is just cut this into smaller pieces so it melts together really evenly. Okay, so just into little squares, and then in it goes. Give that a little mix with a metal spoon. I prefer to use a metal spoon rather than a wooden spoon because sometimes wooden spoons carry the flavours of a curry, for example, and you don't want that flavour to go into the chocolate. So please use a metal spoon for that. Okay, while that's melting away, let's get on to the dry ingredients. Into another bowl, I have some caster sugar, that small amount of self-raising flour, good quality cocoa powder. See how dark and rich that is? That's what we're after. And just with a whisk, we're going to combine that. With chocolate, I also always like to add a good pinch of salt to bring out the flavour. So a pinch of salt in there. Give that a mix. All right, dry ingredients done. 2 eggs, so we'll just crack the eggs into a bowl first and then give them a whisk just so it's easier to incorporate everything. Second one. And break up that yolk, give that a good whisk. Right, all right, let's have a look at this chocolate and butter mixture. Ooh, see how that's slowly melted in together. Take that off and then again, give it a good stir. And if there's still just a few little lumps of chocolate, that residual heat will melt it together. We can add our cream cheese. Be sure to bring out your cream cheese out of the fridge at least 1 to 2 hours before using it. If it's freezing cold, again, it can seize up the chocolate and also take a little longer to melt in. So just break it up with the back of your spoon and give it a mix. Break it up again and just keep stirring that in until it's all one big chocolatey mass. And once that's completely dissolved in, we can add in the dry ingredients. So we'll just pour that in. And then with our spoon, just fold it all together. So it will look slightly dry, but don't forget we're going to add the eggs, and it does need to be that fudgy consistency. Now in with the 2 eggs. And with that spoon, fold everything together. No need to over whisk it or mix it, just let it come together. Okay, I'm using a 24 centimetre brownie tin. And I've just lined it with some baking paper. It's going to make it much easier to remove. And we'll just pop that chocolate in and spread that all the way to the sides, into the corner. And it won't look like it's a lot, but don't forget we've got that self-raising flour in there, so it will rise slightly. Now it's time to add the berries. Now, I highly recommend using fresh berries for this because they'll really hold their shape as they cook. And look how beautiful these fresh raspberries are. Lovely and plump. So you'll need about 125 grams of raspberries, so 1 punnet. I'm going to place them on the top and just nest them in there. This then goes into the oven, 180 degrees, for about 20 minutes. The moment I've been waiting for, tasting the brownie. Do allow it to cool in the tin before you remove it, and just carefully take it out. And I always love to add just a little bit of cocoa to the top before I start cutting into it. Just a small amount, just to really reiterate the chocolate, because there's definitely not enough chocolate in here. I'm joking. So just a small little sprinkle. I love how those little raspberries are just popping out. And see how they've held their shape, but they're just slightly cooked just right. I'll just cut some perfect squares. Ooh, fudgy in the centre, that's what we're after. And let's have a look at this. Oh, look at that. That's what we're after. Just the perfect brownie. We'll just pile them on top of each other. If you like, you can double my recipe and you can freeze half of it. And if you're in the mood for another batch of brownies the week after, they're ready to go. All right, let's have a taste. You know, brownies by themselves are delicious, but when you inject them with loads of raspberries, you get that chocolate fudginess that we're all after with a brownie, but then all of a sudden you get tart sweetness and freshness from the raspberries. Oh, I love that one.